Now in my photo, you can see that the trees are green and have some snow on them, but what you can't really see in the picture is the texture that is on those trees. They are, well, I mean, they look about as close to real trees as you can get on a piece of cardboard. And I'm going to show you how to get that effect using a very cool product that we found at CHA, and that is Ferro by Viva. This is fantastic stuff, and you guys are going to really have fun playing with it. What we need for this part of the class is your Dusty Attic Christmas trees, your Ferro, you need your green smooch spritz, some popsicle sticks. I'm going to use a heat gun for drying purposes. I want to hurry up and get everything dry. I'm going to be using my tweezers and flocking. Flocking that I'm using is by Martha Stewart. Now, we're only using such a tiny, tiny little bit of this that I just separated it and put it into little baggies for you guys. But just so you know what we're using, it's a Martha Stewart Crafts flocking powder in swan color. Let's see if we can get that up there for you. This is what a jar looks like, and this is what we're going to be using. First thing we need to do is I want to put a coat of paint or a coat of spritz on the trees. We're going to turn them green before we paint them green with Ferro. That's just to fill in any holes, because the Ferro is not going to get you the great coverage, and it's also not going to cover the whole tree. So we want to have a little bit of color under there as well. So I'll zoom back in. I have a misting box that I use to mist. I'm going to try and do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. See what we got here. Alright. Let me grab my misting tweezers. These are awesome because they're so long. I can hold my piece and never get my fingers dirty. Okay, maybe if I do it this way. I'm going to have to do it this way, and you guys are just going to have to see it sideways because I want to be able to make sure I can see what I'm doing. So grab your smooch spritz. Don't shake it. Shaking is not what we do. For smooch, to get the glitter out of the bottom and back up into the paint, roll it in your hands, like so. And a handy little trick, if your spritzer ever gets clogged, soak it overnight in Formula 409. Don't throw it away. It can still be used. You just need to soak it overnight in Formula 409, and clog be gone. Alright. Move these guys out of the way. So I'm just going to spritz it. Make sure I get on the sides as well, because you will be able to see the sides in your piece. Whoops. Just kind of give it the once over there. It's got a very nice gold sheen. I don't know if you can see that. Boy, that comes up really well on the camera. It's not that gold. You finished with it. Anyway, so that one is done. You set that right there and grab another one. Easy peasy. Super cool, right? I love smooch spritz. We use smooch spritz in our monthly kits a lot as well because it's very good quality. It's very reliable. It's more affordable than some other mists on the market. They have a great color selection. Okay, so those are good. I'm just going to hit them with the heat gun real quick because we are immediately going to be piling the Ferro on top of these guys and doing the fun stuff. You guys are going to love this Ferro. If you're on our website, on our forums, you know that our forums are very active. We have a bunch of really great members, and we like to tease our members. So the girls who came with me to the CHA show in Chicago saw this Ferro, we all fell in love with it, and we've been teasing our girls on the forums about this stuff for months. And it's finally time to play. Okay, first thing that I want you to do is get your bottle of Ferro and open it up. Ugh. It's going to splooge, just so you know. Be careful. Now take, yuck, I'm messy. Take the top, if you've got a little bit on the top here, and just scoop some of it. I want you to kind of get an idea of the consistency of this stuff. Let me find, where are you? Over here, okay. Ferro is very thick, it's very gritty, it's covered in glitter. We're not using this as a paint. You're not going to smooth it on. We're going to make it very rough. I would show you one of my other trees, except they're kind of glued down to the other advent calendar. But kind of get an idea of the consistency of this stuff. Play with it just for a minute. Even on your foil wrapper, you can kind of see, you can move it around, you can bunch it up, you can make it as thick or as thin as you want, but it does have kind of that sandy, gritty feel to it. That's what's going to give us the dimension on our trees. Anytime you add dimension to a project, you're adding those fine details. That's what's going to make your project pop. And this project, I gotta say, the trees do it. I mean, the centerpiece is nice, and you know, we've got some odds and ends stuff in there that's very cool, but these trees make this project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with this big tree because that's the one y'all can see the best. I am just going to take my Ferro and scoop some out, and I'm just going to start kind of pushing it around. Get some decent coverage. Like I said, it doesn't have to cover totally. That's why we sprayed it in the back with the mist. So that's going to cover where the Ferro doesn't. Ferro, it's kind of wet, but it dries pretty quickly, so you don't want to take too long. And remember that we're going to have to clean up any of the Ferro that gets in between these branches that are supposed to show. So let's kind of try and be a little bit mindful of that. Okay, so at this point you've got your Ferro and it's all over your tree. Notice when I was putting it down, I didn't smooth it on. You want to kind of bounce it around because you want that texture. Now don't just bounce it up and down like this because you're going to get kind of a splotchy. We don't want splotchy. We just want to kind of move it a little bit and get some defined ridges, I guess. That's what you would call them. You'll know it when you see it. You don't want it to be flat. You don't want it to look like you just set a paper towel on top of it and it's got like that pattern to it. You want it to be very random. How can I put this where y'all can see best? You want it to be very random with definite ridges, because those ridges and on the edges of the tree itself is where we're going to be putting the flocking. So if you're a little flat in some spots, just go in and add a little bit. Push it around, get it how you want it, and make sure your ridges, everything just kind of goes all the way up. You want that whole tree to be textured. See if we can kind of this way. Get a good shot of this for you guys so you can kind of see. Isn't that stuff amazing? We love it. Okay, so I'm going to set this tree aside. This one is completo for now. Grab my next tree, and I'm just going to do the same thing to this one that I did to the other one. And I'm going to close up my Ferro because, like I said, it does dry kind of quick. Clean up my edges. So I don't want to leave that bottle open any longer than I have to. I'm just going to grab an X-Acto knife and start with the tree that I did first because that's the one that's had the longest time to set and dry. Flip your tree over, and when you flip it over, you can see, where are we? You can see where the Ferro got that it's not supposed to be. So right in here, you're just going to goop it out. Get it out from where it's not supposed to be. You're going to follow the lines from the die cut and just get your Ferro out there. I can't really see what I'm doing because I have the tree faced towards you guys. Hello. But you can see, like right in here. Oh, forgive me. This is hard to work backwards with the camera. We're just going to scoop all that out and make sure that your tree lines are clearly defined. So I'm going to turn my tree around so I can see what I'm doing and get those out of there. And we're just going to do that for all three of our trees. The Ferro will start to harden pretty good, and it will not be as easy to line that up with your trees. It may take off bigger chunks than you anticipated, and that's fine. If it does, then just go back in. If it's like a blatantly bald spot that looks funny, just go back in and put a little bit more Ferro on that spot. It's cool, don't worry about it. Trees aren't perfect in nature. They're not going to be perfect here either. We just want to keep with the shape of the tree. That's all. Fun, huh? Do you love this stuff? I love this stuff. This stuff is awesome. After you're done, turn your tree over. Make sure you didn't make it terrible by taking off a great big chunk. It still looks great, but it's still defined as it should be. That one's good. Move on to the next one. Flip it over. You can see on the back where you need to kind of punch out the pieces or the little bits of Ferro that got where they were not supposed to go, the naughty little buggers. Wheel keeper. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to change out my paper towel because all my little pokey messes are in there. I'm going to get rid of my little craft stick. And I'm going to hit these guys with a heat gun just to get them a little bit more dry so we can start working with the flocking. Oh, you know what? You also need to get your gesso. Grab your gesso because that's how we're going to adhere the flocking to the tree. And while you're up, go ahead and get cotton swabs. Not cotton swabs. What am I thinking? What are these things? They are cotton. Yeah, they are cotton swabs. These guys. Cotton swabs, right? Good grief. Brain meltdown today. When you're testing your trees, don't push too hard. You don't want to flatten them out and put a big old fingerprint on there. Okay, those are good. So I'm going to grab my gesso real quick. Alright, so I have 3 little trees, as pretty as can be, except we're going to make them prettier. Get out my handy dandy paper towel. Okay, so we've already used 3 different mediums on these little projects. We're using chipboard, which I guess would be our canvas. We used a smooch spritz, which is medium number 1. We've used our Ferro, which is medium number 2, and quite possibly the most awesome 3-dimensional scrapbook medium I have used to date. Now we're going to use our gesso. Now gesso is used by artists, painters mostly, who use it to prep their canvases before painting. Gesso is, for the most part, it's pretty much like a white paint. However, the thicker and better quality gesso you get is also more dimensional than paint. So we like to use it a lot for masks and random covering up of papers and such. But right now we're going to use it to put snow on our trees. While we do this, I got my gesso open. Okay, I'm going to take my flocking and just put, that's all you need, just a tiny little bit right there on the side of the table, because we need to put the flocking on the gesso while it's wet. That way the gesso will hold the flocking in place, and we in turn do not have to go back in and glue it. It's going to be there, it's going to be set. I'm going to my tweezers, because that's how we are going to put the flocking on the gesso on the tree. Is this all starting to kind of make sense? It's flowy, we got it? Sweet. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a cotton swab, because we've decided that's what these things are called in my total brain spasm. And we are going to make this look as natural as we possibly can, putting snow on our trees. Now that you know everything I'm using, I'm going to zoom back in so you can see just the tree and see what I'm doing to the tree. Okay, a little bit of gesso. The tree tops have snow, don't they? So maybe a little bit of snow right there on the top. And maybe the snow is coming down this side a little bit more than it is on the other side, because snow doesn't make sense. Let's see if I can get that up there close for you to see. Alright, this isn't working for me. I need you guys to be able to see this. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Alright, I'm going to get rid of that guy, because I think you can see better what I'm doing here. So, we've put a little bit of gesso up top there, and I'm just going to grab a scoopful of this flocking with my tweezers, and I'm just going to kind of dab it on to where we just laid the gesso. Just dab it on. I'm not kidding when I say you need the most minuscule amount. Put it on there, just kind of squish it in, and blow off the excess. And there's our first little bit of snow. So I'm going to get my gesso again, and figure out where else are we going to put a little bit of snow on this guy. Well, you know the branches need to have snow, but there's also a little bit of snow in the middle. So I'll just do this little bit here, just a tiny, tiny bit. Be very random with it, like snow is very random. But we do know that snow lands, it lands on the tops of the branches, so we want to make sure we get that. We'll go grab a little bit more of our flocking, and we're just going to kind of bounce it on. I need to get my different tweezers. These are not the right ones for this. But you're just going to kind of bounce it on, and it's going to spread all over your tree. Don't worry about it. We're just going to blow that off. It's not going to stick to anywhere that the gesso is not. And if it's not sticking to your gesso, then your gesso is already dried up and you need to put a little bit more down. And so, try and get this close for you here. It's starting to look like a tree with snow on it, which is kind of the point. I'm going to set that down. I grab my other tweezers that I have a little bit more control with. I have 3 different pairs of tweezers in my toolbox. Each one does a different thing. This is a sickness, I tell you. It's a sickness. Okay, so back with the gesso. The high ridges in the middle, where you've got nice, really high ridges, go ahead and put some snow on those. Maybe some branches, like this big branch here that I'm working on, it's a big branch. Maybe it's got a lot of snow. And it sticks way out, so I'm going to make sure there's snow up here too. And then I'm going to grab some more flocking. And then tap off the most, blow off the rest. And there we have it. And then same thing again. You just want to make sure that your tree looks random. You don't want everything to be very symmetrical. You want it to look like freshly fallen snow. And think about, where would the snow land on this tree? Where would it stick if it was really falling? Those of you in the South and the West Coast clearly have no idea what we're talking about when we say snow, but just trust us and do this. Okay, so this tree's done. This tree is ready to be put onto the project. I will grab a new tree and more gesso, and we'll just do the same thing with this tree. The trees are not cut exactly the same, so the branches are going to be different. But one thing is true, snow falls on the outermost branches. Those catch the most snow. And the tops of the trees are going to have snow because it's the top of the tree and that's where snow goes. So this one, my top of the tree, has got lots of snow on it. Yours does not have to if you don't want it to. If you're anti-snow, you don't have to do this part at all. And smoosh it down there. Tap off the extra, and we've got a nice snowy start to our next tree. Just random. Not perfect, just random. And then just take one little scoopful, maybe 2. That gives it that soft, fuzzy, snowy look. Blow off your excess. And there you have it, folks. These trees are so awesome. That Ferro really gives it that dimension that it needs, doesn't it? Now this branch here that I'm working on, it sticks out really far. So I know that it's going to catch a lot of snow. Starting to look like a snowy tree? Yeah. Just get these last little bits done and then we'll move on to the big tree. Okay. Oops, let me turn it around. Here we go. Tree number 2, done. Give me 1 second to go make the dog stop, and I'll be right back and we'll do the big tree. Okay, we're back, and the dog is quiet. I think we can move forward. Yay! So the last tree we need to do is our big one. Get our Q-tip. Q-tip! That's what it's called. It's called a Q-tip, for crying out loud. Get your Q-tip, and we'll get busy on our big guy here. Same thing. You know the tops of the trees all have snow on them. So we'll put snow on them. So we aim to please. Okay. Tap it down ever so lightly. And there's the beginnings of our next little Christmas tree. There we go. And we have a beautiful textured, dimensional, multi-medium embellishment that can be used on scrapbook pages or altered projects. We are using ours for our Advent calendar. All right, I will be right back and we will get started on, what should we do next? We should probably put the screw in our Advent calendar. That's what we should do. So get out the little teeny tiny eye hook that came in your kit. And if you have a paper piercer, grab one of those too, and we'll be right back to do that.